Yeah, the parking's really weird. It's by the way, you want it about a fist from your face. If you park on the left-hand side of that road, it's free. If you park on the right-hand side, it's not. Come a bit closer to that mic for me. Yeah, I don't know, mate. It's Leamington. Oh, does it keep sinking down?
Yes, because I put on weight. It's,
it's
like the lockdown lard, mate, and it still
is
hasn't
that what
gone.
it is? Yeah, well, that was a while ago now, mate. I don't think you can use that excuse anymore. People are still hanging on to it, that excuse.
Yeah, I think I'm hanging on to the excuse and the weight as well. It's still not going away.
When are you going to sort
that? Actually, to be fair, I was starting to do some exercise, but I had surgery on my lower back about 2.5 years ago, and I don't know why. I woke up Monday morning last week, and first thing, got out of bed, it was absolutely fine. 20 minutes later, worst agony I've been in for since I had surgery on, actually, to be fair. It's just started to settle down the last 2 days.
Lower backs are a bitch.
Yeah.
They really are. Yeah, I'm starting to feel mine now. Yeah.
Is that lower back or?
Yeah, it's right in the corners. And years of squatting.
Yeah.
Years of training. Thanks, Lou. Cheers, mate. Thank you. Yeah, just wear and tear. Knees are starting to ache. All this mountain climbing, all this things that you do that you think are good for you.
Yeah. It starts catching up with you, as you progressively get older. It's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that when I was younger.
I'm going to be cheeky now. How old are you?
I am 41.
Spring chicken then.
Yeah, how old are you?
38.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Probably up until about 40. Then when you're halfway to 80, that's it. It's like, you peaked then.
40 is a big deal, man, in my head anyway. It's kind of real adult age. I don't think I'm going to be able to get away with some stupid shit that I get away with now. In fact, I can't get away with it now. I just hang on to it. There's stuff you can do in your 20s, isn't there, that you can get away with, that you can't get away with in your 30s because you're a grown man and you should know better.
Potentially, yeah. I think it depends on the extent to which you think about it. I have these very brief moments where I'm like, oh, hang on, I'm 40. Then I'm like, I'm not 40, I'm 41. And I think, actually, I've got 2 kids and I've got a wife. And yeah, that thought lasts for about 3 more seconds.
How old are the kids?
So my oldest, Aisha, is 12, and Ziana, our youngest, is 6.
Yeah, well, surely you just have to grow up faster than someone like myself who doesn't have kids.
I don't know. I think you have to be more responsible, definitely, and more mindful of certainly for me, more mindful of some of the stuff that I choose to do and not to do. To be fair, still do a lot of the stuff anyway. Just make sure that the likelihood of it happening is pretty certain, and if it doesn't, there's like a sensible contingency to it. I think it's just being a little bit more considered in relation to what it is I do.
I guess there's an argument that they might keep you young. Because I'm pretty serious, I get serious because every day it's like I work and I look after myself. Whereas I think kids bring some joy to your life that it's probably hard to replicate without them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's just some of the things that they say. Like my youngest, we were stood in the kitchen. She came over to me. She looked at me and kind of looked at my stomach and then looked up. And she's like, "Daddy, you need to lose your appetite."
That's what I love about the kids are savages. They don't give a shit about your feelings. They just say whatever they think in their head. Boom. They just. I was having this conversation with someone else. I don't know when that changes. I don't know when they grow into responsible adults. But there's a certain age where they just say whatever the fuck they want. Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's spot on. It's
quite cool, isn't it? It's quite refreshing, especially in today's age where you have to be careful about everything you say. So when a kid just goes, "Yeah, you need to lose some weight, Dad," it's like,
exactly. It's spot on, isn't it?
Thank you for that. Yeah.
And I think it's just the extent to which they become aware, or perhaps too aware, of society and rules. And I guess well, the flip side of it is, the rules anyway. But I mean, my approach has always been, well, do you know what? Fuck it, I know what I'm about. And then also really realise that some people are going to get that, and that'd be great. And then for others, it's like, I don't see the world in that way, and that's cool.
Well, I think it's important what you just said. Like, if you know what you're about, you can be more honest and break the rules. I think it's when you're not quite sure, and there's a lot of conflict, and you don't know who you are, you don't know what you stand for. And I don't know whether there's any other way of learning who you are, but except like growing into life, doing the work on yourself. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know what you think, but like, how do you ever arrive at the point where you know who you are?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's probably very much different for everyone, I should imagine. I think from my experience, it's kind of based on two things. One is definitely reflecting on A, things that we've experienced, and then B, what those experiences mean to us as an individual. And then having a sensible group of people to kind of like bat that around with.
That's important.
But specifically sensible people.
Yeah.
You get people that just are flippant and don't necessarily appreciate, the gravity of some of the stuff that you're talking to somebody about. But then there's others that do genuinely stop, listen, and hear what it is you're talking about.
Who are those people for you then? Are you talking friends, or are you talking people closer to you?
I think it's a combination. I think friends, some family members, and I suppose work classes, not necessarily strangers, but acquaintances that I know well, that I trust and respect the opinions of. So I'll give you an example. One of the last employers I worked with, the chief exec was very different to most. So it was a large housing association in London, and the guy was brilliant. He'd I can't say too much because I don't know how many people actually know about it, but let's just say he was very mindful in ensuring that the profits that the organisation made, there was always some that went to the parts of the business that really needed it, and not necessarily adhering to all of the levels of governance and stuff, shall we say, to make sure it goes in those directions, because it wasn't, but anyway, I always remember there's a Christmas party that we went to, and the restaurant wasn't quite as big as we thought it was going to be, so there wasn't enough seating for everyone. Now the chief exec arrived late, and it was one of those restaurant bar areas. It was relatively dark and had this old wooden flooring, and you know what it's like in bars and stuff like that, the flooring can get a bit sticky and tight and stuff. And I saw him knelt on the floor next to his exec assistant, talking to her, so he was eyeball to eyeball. And I was like, fair play. It's just, you see these little behaviours in some leaders that aren't common. And that stood out a little bit. And I was fortunate, in the role I was in was in central services, and you do get to spend more time with the senior leadership team. So I took more of an interest in understanding more about him, and we keep in touch now. So he's one of the few people that I would just censor check some stuff with.
Yeah.
And it's just finding people like that, isn't it?
Definitely. One of the things I always look for is honesty. So I'm not sure whether my closest friends and family are going to give me honesty, because I think they might care for me too much, because behind honesty isn't always what you want to hear. Yeah,
that's very true.
So people like that, mentors, maybe other guys that I would consider strong men, leaders, that want the best for you, and they might think that the best way to do that is to tell you the truth, regardless of whether it hurts your feelings or not. I think that's important. Again, and rare, by the way.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think one thing that strikes me is a lot of the time, it was find it quite surprising and fascinating at the same time. Sometimes people need to be given permission to be honest with us.
Yes.
So one thing I always do is every now and then I'll ask people a question. I'll and tell me what you think about that. How did that really make you feel? And present that as a question. And then other times, and play around with this, it's fascinating. If you present the same question, well, what do you really think about that? And then say, honestly. And 99% of the time, what you'll notice is...
Come a little closer to that, Matt.
Then the person you say that to and say, like, honestly, they'll pause for that little bit longer.
Yeah.
And then the answer they give you will always be longer than what it would be in the alternative. But sometimes it's like we do have to, for ourselves, kind of need a little bit more permission to be completely honest.
Yeah, and I think that suggests that perhaps reflex, it tells you to say what you think the other person wants to hear. Yeah. Whereas if you stop, and like you say, if you throw the word "be honest," and it makes you pause and think more, maybe the truth comes out a little bit more that way. But again, some people will ask for the truth, but then when it's delivered, so you've got to be careful. If you ask people to be honest, you've got to be okay with whatever they say.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, and honesty it's a two-way thing, isn't it? It's courage. So if I ask you something, I have to have the courage to ask the question, and you have to have the courage to deliver the answer. Precisely. So it's a two-way thing. But I think when you get two people that are in the same game like that, it's quite a good conversation. Yeah. In fact, it's what the podcast tries to evolve itself around. Yeah. Can you be open and honest? Can I? If we can, we'll have probably a good conversation. Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty cool. So tell me more about Real Leaders, because I'm interested in what you do. Yeah. And when you mentioned the topic, I was like, we've got to get Rich on to speak. So tell me more about that.
Cracker, where do we start? It's my simplistic. I suppose it's basically, Real Leaders is come about. Where did it really start? I suppose the 30-second elevator pitch for it is, what we do is we take young people that are perhaps more likely to be involved in criminality in one form or another, and we pair them with professionals from a range of different organisations. The idea being that actually most of the young people, they're not bad people. What's happened is, massively oversimplifying a hugely complex social issue, is a lot of these young people, they've just ended up meeting more bad people than good. And for our programs, which are typically 18 months long, the professionals that we take from organisations, they typically tend to be what we would consider to be relatively good people, i.e. they've developed a career for themselves, they've figured out how to play the game of life and all of that stuff. And these mentors, these business professionals, spend some real protected time with these young people. What it means is these young people get to spend some real meaningful time with people different to those that perhaps have influenced them in the past.
Sure.
And the idea is actually they get a good sense of, you know, what other opportunities are available to them. Because the one thing that always fascinates me about it is, honestly, man, as I'm just one of the luckiest people on this planet in terms of the people that I get to meet and talk to and spend time with. And there's this one guy, and he comes down here quite a lot. So you might be worth, I'll have a chat with him, because you definitely want to have a chat with him.
Okay.
Well, this guy called John Burton.
Right.
So he used to be known as Juice Bomb John.
Like him
So
already.
if you look him up on Google,
Yeah.
he was one of the biggest producers and importers of ecstasy back in the day.
Okay.
I think he was busted once bringing, was it 17 million quid's worth of counterfeit cigarettes into the country, which is like 6 or 7 articulated trucks full of bags.
It's a big deal then.
Yeah, so from Istanbul. But anyway, you know, every now and then we meet somebody and they talk differently about things.
Yeah.
When they talk about problems and stuff that they're encountering and trying to solve, they sound different in the way that they talk about it. And every now and then we meet these people where their tolerance for taking on really big and complex, scary challenges, they approach it in a different way to most people. So John's sounds like one of those people.
Okay.
And he grew up in a really rundown area of Liverpool, around by the docks. And he openly says that, there's no opportunities available aside from running drugs. And he could see an opportunity to make loads of money. He's like, going to go and do that. And he did incredibly well for himself, like really, really well for himself. But he's one of those where, had he been out with his parents at a family barbecue, and one of their friends was a HR director, a finance director, or a chief exec of another company, and John had spent some time, eating a burger and some salad and stuff, talking to this guy, this woman that leads this big company, I can't always help but wonder how different his life may have been. And John's not the only example of somebody that perhaps, they just need to meet the one right person that puts them on a different path.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just wasted talent, such wasted talent. It's bonkers.
Yeah, is it though? I mean, he thrived in the environment that he was born into, right? Yeah. So I mean, going back to the good and bad people, it's so hard to put people into boxes like that, because I believe good people do bad things and bad people do good things, and it's like, well, where's that crossover? Where does it meet? What identifies you as a good person versus a bad person?
Oh yeah, and a lot. There's some greatness, but I think there's some very clear stuff as well. If you're killing people, if you're arranging for other people to be killed, if you're making a living selling products and or services that can have got the potential to cause significant physical and psychological harm to somebody else, that's wrong. That's bad.
Okay.
There's no. I think that's the line, really, isn't it? And most people involved in gang crime and violence, that's core to how the world operates. When I was involved in it, it was all run by greed and fear.
Yeah.
It's all greed and fear.
I guess the line would get a little bit unclear there. Is it, if ecstasy, for example, or cannabis, for example, where there could be arguments that actually it can help people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's, why is a drug illegal that has no record of deaths, for example, cannabis, when alcohol is so free on the market?
Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Yeah.
So I know what you're saying. I guess there's good at this end, bad at that end, and it's like, well, where do you want to push the boundaries on that?
And then I think the thing around cannabis is a really good debate because there's loads of evidence to show that actually people with certain medical conditions, it helps them enormously. And there is a certain set of controls in relation to that to ensure those people have access to it. Whereas when you're involved in cannabis distribution and growing and all of that stuff on the illegal side, the control is controlled by guns, knives, and all of that stuff, and that's where it's bad.
Right. Okay.
But on the flip side, like I think what you're saying is it's looking at it in context, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, there's an interesting thing happening in America now where obviously it's all becoming legalised. So it's like, well, the people that got locked up for selling cannabis that's now legal, it's like, okay, well, is that no longer a crime? Probably not. So it's interesting, and but I've really started to look at things differently lately, because I always, when I see someone who's done something that we can consider bad, I always like to now trace it back and think, well, like, why did they do it?
Yeah.
Were they really offered anything better in life?
Yeah.
Because who knows? I don't know what I would do if I was put in a shit situation. Maybe I'd do something illegal if I had to survive.
Yeah.
In fact, I know I would if I had to survive.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's much empathy flying around there. I always remember a guy called Johnny McAvoy. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Right.
So he's the first Nike-sponsored triathlete, I believe. And he was a criminal when he was young, but he was brought up in that family, and he was arrested for armed robbery, I believe. And he said that prison was amazing for him because he got to network with other superior criminals.
Yeah.
So he's like, within a month I was meeting terrorists, I was meeting better criminals than me, and they were teaching me and growing my network.
Yeah.
So he said it was it's the worst place to put a young criminal in with other criminals.
Yeah.
So he actually trained to become a personal trainer whilst in prison,
right.
So that when he got out, he actually had something. Because he said you could work on the phones and take calls and stuff for like £2 an hour or something like that in prison. But he was like, well, what criminal wants to come out and then spend their life dealing with complaints on the phone?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's total common sense, isn't it? But then you'll get pushback on that, saying, well, we shouldn't be paying for criminals to be educated in prison. And I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, it's like when he was in there, he trained to be a personal trainer, so he had a new option available to him when he came out, and that's the thing, isn't it? I think it's people talk about marginalised groups in society and all of that stuff, and I mean the big thing is actually ensuring that the opportunities that some people have are available to a wider group of people, because I think that's where the limitation perhaps is, and then it's down to the individual's choice whether or not they want to seize that opportunity at that time, and also to a large extent whether they're ready for it or not.
Yeah. Well, how do you know if they're ready for it? I mean, how do you know? Again, if they've had 20 years of just a poor environment, isn't that part of the process to get them to be ready for it?
I don't know. The people that I know that have got into serious trouble, and even me myself, it always just seems to come down to one specific event. And for me personally, it was when I was in the back of a police van and I had the handcuffs on. And I kid you not, all I remember is the van went over a bump and the ratchet on the handcuff just clicked one click tighter. And I can remember the sound of that one click, and it just started to hurt my wrist. And it was that moment then, that very moment, I was like, if I carry on doing this, I'm going to get in serious trouble. And it was that one click on the handcuff. For John, it was when he was sent down and he knew that he wouldn't see his daughter for several years. And I've seen John with his daughter now, and I can see the look in his eye. It's just absolute pride that he's shown his daughter a very different way of living.
I think they're the best people to learn from, though. This is the thing. I think it's such a shame for society not to learn from people who've probably made errors.
Yeah.
It's like, aren't they the people that we should be learning from?
Yeah, definitely. I think the way that they look at life is very, very different, and such a greater sense of gratitude, I guess, is the vibe that I pick up with those that have had that moment where it's like, oh, hang on a minute, I really don't want to be doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Then that's where the gratitude really kicks in. For those that haven't, you still learn a lot from them, but there can be more unnerving because you can see that what their real belief system isn't quite. it's still stuck in the old.
Yeah, I get that, and I know how hard that is to change. So when you come across someone like a John Burton, who's kind of done things that he knows are not right, and maybe fucked things up, and then he's gone on and transformed that into something positive. I'm like, they're the people that I want to learn from. So I think a lot of guys sit in their 30s and 40s having made mistakes. Might not be anything to do with criminal law or anything, but they might have mistreated people or done things they're not proud of, cheated on their partners, anything like that you look back with and go, I really wish I hadn't have done that. So I think I've always been mentored by people who have transformed their life. That's who I want to be mentored by. So Jeff Thompson, for example, very violent man. He mentors me now, completely U-turn. He was a doorman on some of Coventry's most violent nightclubs, and he became very violent. He used to beat people up, and I remember him telling a story of he knocked some guy out unconscious, and when he came round, he knocked him out straight again. Horrible stuff. He used to bully people. He bullied his wife, and if you met him now, like you just would not know that was part of his past. Yeah, but that's what I love about him. He took all that violence, all that anger, and he went on and did. He's done films with Orlando Bloom, Ray Winston, and he's used that anger and learned how to channel it into something. Because I think part of the issue, I don't know what you think to this, Rich, is like I think we try and encourage young men especially, to lose that anger and get rid of it, and it's like, well, one, you can't, and two, what do you do with it?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do with that? So it's maybe focusing on creative ways, physical ways perhaps, of utilising that energy that's within them. Yeah,
definitely. And I think you're right. And I don't know, can I speak from my experience, but you can't lose it. Like I say, you just have to rechannel it, refocus it. And somebody that mentored me when I was younger just said, well, Rich, you're not going to stop that stuff. What you have to do is shift. He just said specifically, just shift the focus. So channel that same energy into something different. And it works a treat. And this is an incredibly easy thing to say. And doing it, arguably, is probably relatively easy as well. It's sustaining it. It's the hard bit.
And I think learning how to control it versus it controlling you.
Yeah, definitely.
So Matty Evans is another good example. He's a real tough guy. He used to do a lot of competitive fighting in cages and stuff. I mean, he could kill me with his bare hands. Yeah. But again, you'd never know it. He's gone through this psychedelic process now of healing and therapy. But I think because he's got that confidence that he knows there's a dangerous man inside of him, he treats it with more respect now. And it's a confidence, and he doesn't want to use it anymore. So I think every man needs to be a bit handy and dangerous. For example, if you're a dad, like there might be a time in your life where aggression needs to be switched on, to protect you and your family. So it's like, well, we don't want to remove that, and men don't want that taken away from them. And I think there's too much of us trying to change everybody rather than just get the best out of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's speaking, like I say, everyone's expecting people to be something different. And it's kind of just understand what the person's actually like first, like I say.
Yeah, and what they've been through.
Yeah, exactly.
Some kids have had such a shit start to life, and I think if you just took a bit more time to maybe look at that, you'd probably have more empathy and maybe want to help a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. And the amount of not just kids and stuff, but adults as well. Yeah, some of the challenges and tough times they've gone through and they're going through right now.
Yeah.
Like I say, I think it's just been a little bit mindful and saying, actually, how is this person really, and what are they likely to be dealing with outside of work, if they're a colleague or somebody that we're meeting on the street. What I've always really pisses me off is the way people look down on homeless people. I just don't get. I get that to some extent because there are some homeless people that I've spoken to, and I'm just like, dude, I can understand why you're homeless because you are an absolute fucking idiot, and they're just trying to shaft anyone and everything else. But within all of those, you get idiots even like in the highest echelons of corporate arenas and stuff. But there's so many that I speak to. Like when you go to New Street Station and it's raining, they'll all be stood outside because it's the only place we can get some real cover and still kind of get some cash. But they'll tell you about like the history of Birmingham. They'll tell you about some of the different initiatives that local authority have been trying to kind of get more people off the streets and why those initiatives don't work. And it's not just one or two that we're saying the reasons why they don't work. There'll be like 3 or 4 or 5 of them. They'll all say something similar. And I'm like, well, has nobody actually stopped and really listened to what you're saying and changed the way that they're trying to help some of these guys as well? So the most classic one is, well, actually, because their lives are so chaotic, well, the local authority always used to, I don't know if they still do it, is that they'll set up these hubs for a day to provide support and guidance and everything else, and then they'll just disappear. And a lot of these bods are saying, well, actually, they don't know where they're going to be from one day to the next. So what they need are these hubs kind of consistently being around for like a few weeks and in different locations, so they've got some flexibility. And it's just little bits like that. And I was like, they're still decent people, most of them.
And they're still people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of in the area that I live in Stratford, and there's quite a lot of homeless people there now too. But I've noticed a lot of them, you can tell there's like some severe mental issues there too.
Yeah.
There's some mental problems there,
Yeah.
there's a guy that I buy a cup of tea for most days, and I think he kind of like has just accepted that that's his life, and I don't think he's ever thought that he's worth anything more or that there's anything there for him, because I don't think he has to sleep rough. I think there's a bed for him.
Right.
But I don't think he knows what else to do with himself. And it's kind of, it sounds fucked up, but I kind of get it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, well, you're not going to get a job. He's just not capable of holding down a job.
Yeah.
Like, he's an old guy now as well, and he's took a lot of drugs in his time.
Right.
So I'm like, well, what do you do apart from the only thing that you know, which is to sit and wait for people to buy you a cup of tea?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's his way of interacting with people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I kind of understand why you're not doing anything else. Not to say that it's right, and I wish you wouldn't, but yeah, I kind of get it. And when you start viewing it like that, like I say, you just have a bit more care for people. But you have to stop and think about these things, because I think in the past you could just walk past the homeless person, not even think.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even think.
Yeah.
As if that could never be you. And I'm like, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll never rule that out,
And I think to me, that's the more concerning thing, is people just walk straight by and not stop to think about it.
Yeah, does that make you any less, like, if we're talking good and bad people, this is the argument. So let's talk about, like, the Ukraine war for a second. If I sit and think about how terrible it is and I really care, does that make me any better than somebody who doesn't give it any attention? Because the outcome's the same, right? Like, I'm not, even if I sit and care and watch the news and I don't do anything, does it make me a better person?
I don't know. What would a better person be?
Well, I guess the difference between the person who cares and doesn't, but yet the outcome is the same, isn't there an argument to say, well, you're no better than the person who doesn't think about it?
Oh, yeah, I suppose I see
what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you're just saying, basing it on what the outcome would be, whether you're caring or not.
So me and you can sit here today and talk about how much we care and feel for homeless people, yet we could continue to walk past them and do nothing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's the same outcome as someone who doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
However, like, I don't think you can underestimate the importance of just buying someone a cup of tea either.
No, nowhere near.
And just handing it to them and say, have a nice day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because that might be the best interaction they have all day.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's one of the big things that always strikes me about some of the young people that we work with, is because for so long they've been told they're bad. What that means is they start looking down a lot more, as opposed to looking up and around. And when they start meeting some of the people that we've brought on to help as mentors and influence them in other ways, they start to look around and say, actually, hang on, these are some really successful people. And they're spending time with me.
Yeah.
And they kind of really give a shit about me being in a better place in 6 months, 12 months' time. And then what happens is they start looking up. Whereas we had on the session last month, one of them really came out of his shell and was absolutely buzzing by the end of it, running, going around, shaking people's hands and giving a couple of hugs that he knew really well. And he was starting to look up again. And like I say, that simple little gesture of just actually taking an interest in somebody that hasn't got a roof over their head and just listening to them for 5 or 10 minutes. And I'll tell you what, like I said, the odd one, you just think, mate, I can understand, there's different people you need to be talking to than just everyday Joe me. But others are like, they just feel as though somebody's giving them the time of day, and that matters enormously. Yeah.
So who are these kids that you're working with? Are they kids that have got themselves into trouble with the law?
So a couple of them have, and then there's one other that's more likely to be involved in that type of.
What does that look like? Is that just like hanging out and doing things that they probably shouldn't?
Yeah. So if you're more likely to be involved in it, it's just like you typically fit into a certain demographic, and it's generally things like, can you just help us out, taking this from here to there or something like that.
Okay.
And then you just get pulled into it more and more and more over time. And then a couple of others, they've been through it and they're just coming out the other side. and just starting to put their feet back down on the ground properly again.
What interests me about someone like John, who you mentioned, he's clearly a clever guy.
Oh yeah,
because these businesses are big businesses.
Oh yeah,
like logistics behind them, and the finance that you deal with. Like you have to be smart, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, the complexity of it all.
Yeah, so I see, again, forget the moral argument of like, is it right to sell drugs? Of course, no, we probably both agree. But the brains behind the business setup, it's like, well, that guy's got something.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, and if we can maybe take it from that area to this area, this guy could be. Yeah, and I think that's what you're referring to.
Exactly. Yeah, the whole underlying skill set and capability is absolutely 100% identical. 100%. Like I said before, though, he was given a certain set of opportunities and he did really well off of it. If you gave him a different set of opportunities, which he's got now, so arguably he's probably got one of the most successful offender rehabilitation programs in the country.
But you'd listen to him, wouldn't you? As a young guy, he's got some stories to tell.
Oh yeah, some of the stories, you're like, mate.
If a guy just came out straight out of like Oxford with a PhD and a nice certificate and a suit and was talking about mental health and psychology, I don't think these kids would probably give him the time of the day. So he's a good guy, to be listening to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd encourage him to keep doing what he's doing. Clearly, if he's got that record as well, I think we need to keep hope and faith that there's something good in all of these kids.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I don't believe that. It's incredibly rare that anyone is born bad. There's a very niche group of individuals that there's evidence that shows that just because of the way their brains are constructed differently, they're more likely to be bad. But that's one in, I don't know, hundreds of thousands at least. But everyone else, we're just born with two innate behaviours, aren't we? It's just like loud bangs. The instinct is to kind of like be surprised and shocked, and then the sense of falling. Everything else is learned, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So I got into this game, obviously, I fucked things up when I was in my late 20s. Usually you're in the game and you help other people because of the experiences you've been through. Yeah. So is that kind of like your story, like you're helping these kids live a better life because perhaps you flirted with that area too?
I don't know if it's that. I think absolutely, I always want to help the right people. What I mean by that is there's certain people I'm able to help, and then there's others that, based on my skill set and whatever else, I'm not in a position to help. So it is what it is. But I think I'm just incredibly fortunate that I had a spell of time where I was involved in, I didn't know it so much at the time, but gang crime and violence. Well, and this is back in late 90s, maybe something like that.
So you were like 18, 16?
Started at 15 through to actually probably about 19 on and off. But it was just a group of us I used to hang out with. Did a couple of minor naughty little things. Got arrested a couple of times, but both times I'm just so lucky. On one occasion, had I been nicked 2 minutes earlier, literally, it probably would have been a very, very different outcome. Literally 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the other time, it was probably... there were three of us. The coppers just appeared out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere. And I had some stuff in my pocket that, had they found it, I would have been in a bit of trouble. And luckily, one of the guys that I was with, he was one of those boisterous, kind of like, check me out, I'm the lad type of things. And he pushed one of the coppers, literally before the cop was going to search me, and they just floored him, chucked him in the back of the car and took him off.
Took him.
Yeah, exactly. And literally I was that far away from... but yeah, luckily I was just involved in it just because it was easy and I was just interested in the time. But then fast forward to what I've been working on the last few years, where I've been more heavily involved in management and leadership development in organisations. It just struck me that there's like a real synergy, like you're saying, between people that operate on the less legitimate side of the fence, involved in criminality, and the skill set that they adopt, in comparison to the people that are leading organisations. It's just the contexts are very, very different. And it's just always in my head, it's like, well, if we look at organisations now, a lot of the decisions that senior leaders make in society, we have a big problem with that. say it's like, well, we don't trust businesses anymore because their decisions are all driven by how much more profit they're able to make, and less about actually what contribution they make to the immediate society around them, and more at a global level as well, depending on the size of the business. And in my head, I was thinking, well, actually, if we took some of those managers that are likely to be in those senior leadership positions in 5 years' time, and they spent 18 months mentoring this young lad that's perhaps got in a bit of trouble. I don't know, maybe his brother's been stabbed, worst case, been murdered in front of him, and introduced him to a very, very different world, and they really understood it. How would that then influence that manager's decision making? A, when they go back into their day job, and then B, 5-10 years later when they're in those more senior positions, because they've been exposed to a slightly different life and world that otherwise they would have never encountered. Because I think most of our decisions we make are based on our previous experiences and the things that we're looking to achieve, and that's another element of another set of experiences that future senior leaders got to kind of like draw on when they're making decisions.
So do you know the answers of how this impacts those leaders when they've...
No, not yet. We're still early doors, so we're just coming to the end of pilot phase.
What's your gut?
It's a good question. I think it will. Not to the extent that I would want it to by any means whatsoever. But yeah, it definitely will. Because the depth of the relationship that we're starting to see already between the mentor and the young person, when I say depth, I mean the level of disclosure with the young people, and to some extent the mentors as well now. They do go pretty deep, and it is very emotive. And all of our big events that we've experienced, we can recall them because the emotional element of it was really quite profound. And if we can get that, then I think they will.
Well, there's something to gain for both parties as well.
Oh, massive.
Helping somebody that needs help, or guiding someone, or shaping someone's future, or making them a better person, a better man. I don't think there's much more reward in life than that. I'm talking to the guys a lot at the minute about, defining what success looks like.
Yeah.
Because I think in our society we can forget everyone else, and we can be focus driven on financial success, growing our business, and there's no thought put aside to how we're actually contributing to making our community better. But again, part of me thinks, well, why would people think like that? What's in it for them? Like, why not chase all the capital greed, and why not build your own business and pocket all the money and try and save on tax? Why not?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a very good question. Yeah. I just think, and to me, the extreme side of it is when you're about to die, if you're unlucky enough to know you're about to die, your life will flash before your eyes. And what do you want to see? A bank account, a bank balance with $1 billion in it. Well, actually, do you know what? 1 billion people that are going to be sad and miss you. Which would make you feel more satisfied when you take your dying breath, mate?
How many people stop to think about that, though?
Well, this is it. I don't think people can really stop and deeply think about it unless you've been in it.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And it's hard to slow down now. Like, everything's 100 miles an hour. I mean, when was the last time you stopped to reflect on your life and question, what do I want from my life? Yeah. How am I behaving? How am I showing up? Luckily, it's something we do inside of our group, but I would imagine the majority of people don't.
Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely.
But just slowing down and asking that question.
Yeah.
Because I think to get off that path, you have to first realise that you're on it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're on the wrong path, the first part is like, oh yeah, I'm not actually on the path that I want to be on. Because it is easy to, we're taught this to be successful. I don't know how much of that side we're taught about
Mm.
looking after other people, but we are taught about drive and focus and ambition. But it is all self-centered.
Yeah.
I've fallen into that trap. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get wrapped up. And it depends who influences you too.
Yeah.
So if you get the mentor that is all sales-driven and that becomes your standard. So, Alex, you've had a good month if you've made 10K and that's the only metric we're going to put on it. And there's no groundwork or, what have you done that's good for your family this month?
Yes.
What kind of, where did you show some kindness or compassion?
Yeah.
And again, it's easy to roll your eyes at this stuff because it sounds so fluffy and weak, but it's not actually. It takes hard work to try and improve yourself as a person. And you'll like yourself better if you're kinder.
Yeah, definitely. And
you just will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people that you have those conversations with, the tightness that you develop, certainly with us as a family. So I know 110% when things go wrong in the future, because shit goes wrong for everyone, we'll be really, really tight as a group, and we'll have each other's backs.
Yeah.
And so much of that is because of the things you're talking about. Actually, we do take time to say, well, actually, the questions we have around the dinner table is one thing that made you smile today, one thing you did that made somebody else smile, one thing you did that you're grateful for, and also what did you get wrong today, and what have you learned from that? Because one thing I've learned, especially more about my older daughter, because I drum it into both of them. You don't have to be perfect. What you have to do is make sure you walk away and you know that you've done the best job you can.
Yeah.
Whether you fuck up or not, that doesn't matter. It's have you done the best you could do. So my oldest, she came out, she buggered up one of her exams, where these are not like an exam, they do these end of year test paper things, whatever they're called. And she was really disappointed. She was like, oh, I know I've messed it all up. And I was looking at her, I was like, well, do you think you've done your best? And she looked at me, and the way she looked at me, I knew she was going to say yes, and I knew she believed 110% she'd done her best. And I was like, well, that's cool, that's great. So we took her out for a meal to celebrate and everything else. But yeah, that whole thing of what have you got wrong? Because we get stuff wrong every single day. And just helping them to really appreciate that that's not bad. That's what you have to understand and learn and do it better next time.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, that's like an example of fantastic parenting, where the cynical Alex jumps in and goes, but I know people aren't doing that.
Yeah. I
know people have got their heads in their mobile phones and not asking questions like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Because they're fantastic questions. You know, builds some excitement.
Mate, I can't take credit at that. It was just came across in some book that I was found.
Yeah, sure. Like, but we all learn everything off somebody else. But the fact that you've got to implement it, I believe, part of having a good life is asking good questions. Yeah, I truly believe that, and the quality of your answers will come from the quality of your questions. Yeah. So if you teach people how to ask good questions, they generally get good answers.
Yeah, exactly.
And vice versa. Some questions can just lead us into more darkness. Like, why is my life so fucking shit? Well, it's because I'm a waste of space. It's because no one gives a fuck. Yeah, and boom, you keep going and going and going. What could I possibly do to make my life better this month? That's going to encourage some form of action. And I think even teaching people how to construct good questions is important.
It's a good question for it. In terms of asking more of those questions and going deeper into the darker side of it, do you think there's value in forcing your way down that route for a while so you can get closer to hitting rock bottom?
I do. I think, as my friend Alan Dovey would suggest, he's a psychotherapist, be careful when you start exploring dark questions, because if you're already at a place of darkness or you don't feel well, that can lead you, if you become too analytical, he was saying, when you're not in a good place, like, you won't create good answers, you won't create good questions. So I think there's a time and a place. But I think what I've learned over my years is that by me pretending that I don't have these faults, it's become more dangerous. So I try and push them to the side and put on this, especially on social media, put on this perfect portrayal of who I am. So I'm this better man who never fucks up, and I'm great, and I spend time with my parents, and I'm in shape, and I do this and I do that. When the reality is, like, there's so much stuff that I do that I'm ashamed of, like, so much. So rather than hide that now, like with this podcast, I just put it right out in front of me and dump it there and go, right, I'm a combination of this good stuff and I'm a combination of this shit stuff. Okay, I want to be more of this good, but I'm aware that that shit stuff's there. I'm going to work with it. I'm not going to ignore it. And if I want to do some writing, might bring some of that dark stuff into me. And I always find with young guys, as soon as they hear that, they just go, I don't have to pretend to be perfect anymore, Alex. I'm like, no, man. If you're pissed off, tell me. If you're angry, tell me, and we can look at it. Because it's just a feeling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And to expect young guys to just eliminate that, I'm like, that's bullshit. It's never worked for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's the extent to which we can, it's the way in which we express that aspect of it, I think, isn't it?
Conversation is number one for me. Getting guys together in a safe environment where they can just say, I'm really angry. You know, my girlfriend really pisses me off, and I get angry, and I want to hurt people. And that takes courage to say that, because it's not the right thing to do. But to express that that's how you feel and that's what you're drawn towards, it takes balls.
Yeah, exactly.
But it requires less courage if it's in an environment that makes that normal. If you're the only one that's willing to speak up, yeah, tons of courage required. But if everyone's on the same page and we're here to help each other and we're here to be honest and everyone's being honest, it doesn't feel such hard work.
Yeah.
So that's important. And then physical activity for all men.
Yeah.
Train.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a beast, if you're going to be a fucking animal, let's get you in the ring. Let's get you in the gym.
Yeah.
Let's do something. Let's climb some mountains. Because the leash can come off then. You know, you can go for it. That's why I train so goddamn hard. It's like the psychopathic part of me comes out in the gym, and I can grunt and I can swear and I can pace the gym and I can do all the things that probably like I wouldn't be allowed to do in this place right here.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, isn't it? It's finding a situation where we can channel that type of energy, isn't it?
Well, where do you channel yours?
I think a lot of it is doing things that I know that probably most people wouldn't really want to stick their neck out and do.
Like what?
So the stuff for real leaders at the moment, and there's a bit of that. And that's probably the main thing right now. And just on a day-to-day basis, I mean, there's a contract gig that I'm working on at the moment, and I haven't worked actually in a company for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And I was saying to one of the guys I work with on Real Leaders the other night, I was like, it feels very different when I'm in there now. Very, very different, because I am genuinely like, there's a difference between needing to work and wanting to be in there and doing it. And mine's very much more, and I want to go in and do it, because I love that stuff anyway. But yeah, some of the conversations I have with the bods and the organisation are just like, dude, I genuinely do not fucking understand how your company isn't bankrupt. It's literally like that. I hope we to understand, because it doesn't make sense at the moment. And yeah, just it's the whole thing of, I just love pushing boundaries, both my own stuff and also the boundaries of others. I don't know about you, but I just love understanding where people believe their limitations are and why they think that's where it stops for them.
Sure.
And then it's kind of like, well, what can I say now that's going to kind of like jar with you and make you think about it slightly differently? And I just love that side of stuff, because I just don't understand why people think there's a limit on what they can do.
I think because they've been taught so. It's been drilled into them.
Yeah, I get that, how they've come about doing it, but I still don't understand why they now believe that it stops there. Because there's two sets of beliefs. There's one where actually I believe I can go this far. I believe I can go this far, and then the other part is, yeah, that's my belief right now, and then I can recalibrate my belief to something different, and then get to this point, and then I need to recalibrate again. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think you need some proof that belief has some backup. So if I'm continually doing the wrong things, but every day I say to myself, but I could be so much more. After a while, I'm going to stop believing that I could be so much more. Yeah. Does that make sense? So
because I'm not actually doing it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So when you look at the most confident people, actually they're the most hardworking.
Yeah.
Because they've actually done the things each day that back up what they're trying to achieve. So, for me, it's a skill set, self-belief and confidence. Yeah. It grows as your capacity to do things grow. This is why I'm a huge fan of flipping it around and doing whatever you do, start small and start winning. Even if these wins,
like the baby steps.
Yeah. And again, it's such a cliche. We know this. Start small, but how many people actually strategically have the patience to do that?
Yeah.
So I started with things like having good hygiene practices. Yeah. You know, ridiculous things, because actually I'd failed at everything else I said I would do. And when I say failed, I mean I just wasn't complying with my own word. Yeah. So I was like, right, I'm gonna have to shoot under this. But it was more productive for me to do things that probably meant very little in terms of outcome, but that just installed some self-trust back in me. Yeah. So that when I did say I was going to do something, I actually had some belief that actually you're actually going to do it this time instead of spending it like... Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And the other side of it as well is those steps we need to take towards kind of like achieving what we want to, and like I said, the big thing around developing that deeper sense of self-confidence. And the other side of it though is actually fuck all of that. What's the biggest, boldest thing that you want to be known for in your whole life? Fucking nail that completely and have that crystal clear in your head, and then just go balls out and just smash out until you get it.
No, I love that, and that's exciting and it's motivating. I'm just wondering whether the capacity is there to behave like the person that you want to be.
Oh yeah, I don't think the capacity develops over time.
Absolutely.
So you learn what you need to be doing. And like you said, that's where then you dial it all right back and say, well, actually, I've gone all balls out and I've landed smack on my face, smashed my face up, and I've got nowhere. But you've made massive steps because you've learned enormous amounts.
Sure.
And then, like you say, then you go back and say, well, actually, how do I break this down into it's a little bit more manageable? And then start chipping away at it. And then it's just always going balls out for the biggest, most shiniest thing you can possibly get. Definitely, that's where you have to start.
No, I agree and I disagree at the same time. Everything's hypocritical. It's like, do you know what? I'm totally on board. Like, fucking aim for the stars, man. But at the same time, like, do not neglect the very base of today. Yeah. All that small shit that you need to do that you think's beneath you. Be humble enough to do that so that you can get this big fuck off. Get close to that. So again, it's trying to get that across. It's getting the
balance between the two, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's different truths in there. I agree totally. Aim big, but fucking hell, aim small. Makes sense to me.
I have those baby steps, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. There's what was it I was reading something about earlier on this morning? It might have been someone in some blog, some email thing, and they were talking about the amount of people that have been really successful financially, and the number of them that actually regularly exercise versus those that just eat loads of shit and McDonald's and everything else. I was on some TikTok thing I was watching this morning, and they said it was just such a widespread. You have people that are incredibly successful, and the attention they pay to their physical health was just like non-existent. You had others that are wildly successful and worked really hard for very diligent and everything else, and everybody's got that in their own ways. I think it's just. And Tony Robbins said there's a code for everything, isn't there?
Yeah. You don't have to recreate the wheel.
Precisely. Everything's been figured out. Yeah. I suppose it's just figuring out what works for you.
There is, and there's two questions, right? There's like, well, what do I want to achieve in life? And then there's who do I want to be? So when I went down the path of who do I want to be, I've had more success since working on that. Yeah. Because I was actually achieving some of the things, but I didn't like who I was. Yeah, that makes sense. So I was achieving my financial goals. Yeah. I was being a bit of a dick. I was being, moody, miserable with people, not giving the people that I love much attention, just being snappy. So I didn't like who I was, but ticking the box for the goal, Alex. Yeah. Shout about that on socials, that sounds fucking good. Show people your new car and all this bollocks. And it's like, well, actually, let's flip that around. Before you think about what do you want to achieve, who do you want to be? Exactly. That question's changed a lot for me. Yeah. I've earned a lot less money since looking at it. Yeah. But you know what? It's worked out better.
And in terms of thinking about who you want to be, has that remained the same, or has that evolved as you've got further into the journey?
Again, there's conflict inside of me, and it changes depending on which Alex is asking the question. Right. But like, there's some core essentials inside most men that stay the same. Yeah. So like, is there ever going to be a time in your life, Rich, where you don't want to be kind?
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't want to be kind, mate. I don't want to be kind ever.
But you know what I mean. Like, if you could pick your characteristics, would you rather be a kind man or a really unkind man?
I would definitely be kind.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like, do I want to show kindness? Yes.
I'll get you,
that kind of thing. Do I want to work hard? Yeah. Do I want to put my head on the pillow each night, knowing that I've given my best to whatever? Yeah. So there's some core things that are just never going to change. Yeah. So for me, it was more important to put my focus on those things versus the external rewards. So it's more about, well, who are you, Alex, when no one's watching? Yes, when you're on your own. Can you get to be the person that you like and respect? Because I think as a guy, if you don't respect who you are, or like, it doesn't really matter what you achieve too much. I don't think so. It's never worked for me anyway, because you know deep down you don't like your fucking self. So more money or less money, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you look at yourself in the mirror and you look at the darkness of your pupil, and you properly look at yourself, and that's when, it's all right, or no, I've got some work to do there. Yeah, exactly.
It's a scary thing to look right in the mirror.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the ultimate failure, it certainly felt like this for me, is when I was achieving stuff, and then I still didn't like who I was. Yeah. Because you're actually getting the things that you said you wanted, and you realise, well, it doesn't matter.
So what was the turning point then? What was the
point? Full on breakdown, 28. And I haven't been the same since. It was 10 years later. It's changed me. Yeah, it was really traumatic, and I don't like to like label myself with like post-traumatic stress disorder, but from what I've read, it feels a little bit similar. Like, it was quite shocking. I didn't realise, one, I was around people and I kind of experienced how nasty some people can be, which was quite shocking. Then I experienced how poorly I could behave, which was even more shocking. And then I saw the results of the damage that I'd done, like how my behaviours could have an impact on other people. So there was somebody in my life at the time who I literally fucking destroyed with my behaviour, and she was broken. And it was just a big realisation of like, you've behaved poorly here, not just for for a number of years. I got away with what I could, cheating and all this kind of stuff. And at the time, I didn't really think twice about it. I was 28. I was successful. I had money in my bank. I was driven, ambitious. Women liked it, and I didn't give a fuck. I'd do anything. I was drinking heavily. I was partying, But then I was just, I was like I say, behind closed doors. I was like, who the fuck are you, Alex? Like, you're not. I didn't give my mum and dad 2 minutes of my time. So I mean, if we met up, I wouldn't speak to them. Didn't want. It was just horrible. Just really did not. And it's hard to look back at that because you're like, well, why can't I just be a naturally nice guy, one that springs out of bed and hi neighbours but I'm not like that, or I haven't been like that. So I'm like, right, I have to get up and I have to work really, really hard to get my mind in a good place so that I can be nice to the people around me. Yeah. And it sucks. And I feel like I spend most of my life just trying not to be a dick. You know what I mean? But I have to do it, and my life has changed because of it. But it's still a battle. Yeah. It's still a battle. And look, let's face it, if you look around at I don't know if you're into music or not, Rich, but my inspirations, like Johnny Cash, people like that, in the writing world, it's Charles Bukowski. These are fucking drunks, man. These are crazy people, and yet we all love them. And it's like, well, why do we love them? What's in them that attracts us to them? And I think we all want to be a bit of a rebel at times. We all want to say, fuck the rules. Let's go. Let's party. Let's get everything that's really in me out. And I can stop pretending to be this nice guy. Yeah.
And I think for me, and the thing that resonates with me is that trying not to be a dick. Because I think I always keep thinking about it is similar to you. I can remember that I used to be a royal fucking twat. I was the guy, right, that would walk into a room and be like, right, who do I need to be better than? Yeah. And who do I need to properly put down? And those thoughts, they're not there, but I know that they're still there somewhere. Sure, Like every single day, they slip that little bit further backwards and backwards and backwards. Yeah. But every now and then they do come out. And sometimes it's warranted, and then other times you're like, oh, what the fucking hell did I do that for? But I know exactly what you mean. And I think, to me, when I do think about it, part of it is there's such a deep sense of self-awareness that comes with us being able to recognise, actually, I'm being a bit too much of a dick here, or that real conscious intention to not be a dick. And I would imagine that's relatively rare, that's at the forefront of people's minds.
Definitely when you're younger. I think as you grow into, especially coming up to 40, it's quite a common theme with the guys. They start to recognise their own behaviours, things probably that they just could not see. So I think the first stage of any kind of change is like, well, observe yourself, see what you are doing, see what you're saying, see how you're behaving. I think if you can see it like as a third person, it's quite shocking, when you're horrible to someone or you speak to your partner like a piece of shit. If you can actually witness that from somebody else, you'll be like, well, I would not like that guy. I mean, who the fuck is that angry guy? Because I don't like him. So you go, do you know what I mean? So it's quite shocking. It's quite scary, and I can see why some people will never look at it, because then when you see it, you've got to do something about it. I was saying, where do I start? How do I turn this guy who's angry and pissed off all the time and overweight? How do I change him into something decent? And there's your purpose in life, though. People always say they struggle with purpose and mission. I'm like, it's fucking there. Have a look at everything you don't like about yourself. Like, don't tear yourself down. Do it with compassion, but don't bullshit yourself. Like you say, look in the mirror. Exactly. What don't you like? How are you mistreating the people you love? Because when they're not there, you'll soon find out what you've fucking done,
Is that what's that guy's name? Is it somebody Pearson, that Canadian guy?
Jordan Peterson.
That's one. And
I went to see him a few weeks ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I love him.
I can see why people interpret him as being quite controversial. I get that side of it.
Why?
Definitely. And just because of the way that he explains some stuff, to me, I understand exactly where he's coming from. The reason I mention it is because there's this one thing that he suggests doing is something along the lines of, I can't remember exactly how he explains it. He says something like, if you really want to know what you need to change about yourself, sit on the side of your bed or something and sit there and really deeply ask yourself, something like that. And that's always stuck in my mind. And I keep thinking, I wonder how many people actually do that. And if they do that, what's caused them to do that in the first place? Because like I was saying, I think you've said a few times, it's like the extent to which people do some of these things versus the majority that perhaps don't, the majority that don't really think about the war in Ukraine, whether or not to talk to a homeless person and everything else. What if any, what's the common trigger, if there is one, that forces that person to learn to actually
pain?
You think it's pain?
Always.
Yeah.
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 Why would you change your life if it's everything's sweet? Why would you change your life?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if everything's going okay. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever worked with anybody who's gone through a radical transformation that hasn't started from a place of severe pain.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like who I am. I've become so overweight. This has to change.
Yeah.
This can't. You hear phrases like this can't go on any longer. The thing with those kind of questions, I think they're great, but it goes back to what we've just said. You've got to have the awareness to see what needs changing.
Yeah.
So it's only now, because the levels of self-awareness that I've brought into my life, can I see what really needs changing.
Yeah.
And that's took years to develop, by the way. It sounds so simple.
Yeah.
Just sit and have a look what needs changing. Well, you've got to have the ability to step away from yourself and see yourself and see what needs changing.
Yeah.
I mean, some things are obvious because, like you say, you can look in the mirror, but most of what we need to change is invisible. We can't see it. So we have to look for it.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, so that's a drill.
Yeah.
That takes time. That takes energy. That takes awareness in itself to get to that point.
Yeah.
But it all starts from the desire to want to change.
You think the desire starts from the off, or does the desire develop as you get further into it?
I think the desire grows as you go further off path.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I believe so anyway. So you
Yeah.
go further left until you decide, fuck, I've got to make the pendulum swing the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd be horrible in your 20s, or you do things that you're not proud of, and then you spend the rest of your time trying to correct that and move towards things that actually make you feel proud.
Yeah.
But I don't know anyone else who learns any differently. This is why these kids should always be given another chance.
Yeah.
How else are you supposed to learn?
Yeah.
How else are you supposed to learn? But the problem is in the public now. If you make a mistake, you're crucified now.
Yeah.
So what we're teaching people is don't fuck up ever, because we will destroy you and there's no coming back.
Yeah.
And you wonder why these kids think, oh, I'm done at 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think again, it's a bit of a tricky one. It depends on the situation. I think definitely the expectation is not to get things wrong, and when you do get things wrong, the way that some people treat you off the back of that massively influences the approach you take. But on the other side, there's a guy that I spent some time with before lockdown, and he and his wife were woken up by their daughter at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something daft, because she was walking home with her brother, and he'd been stabbed in the chest.
Wow.
And his parents obviously ran up the road, and they watched their son bleed out on the pavement with the paramedics trying to treat him, doing open heart compressions or whatever it might be, and he died on the pavement. And I think people like the people that cause that pain, and you look in his eyes and you can just see this despair and loss and all of the emotions and a million more that you would imagine that somebody would experience when they're in that position. And with that, it's like, it's such a bizarre thing, because the first time we met, because I think I'd set up Real Leaders like 6 months before, and I can remember talking to my wife before, and I was like, I really don't know how to play this conversation, because in effect what we're doing is helping young people similar to the young person that killed his son.
Right. So how old was the lad who put the knife in him?
I can't remember now.
But young lad.
Oh yeah, definitely youngest lad, and then his son was 19 at the time.
So teenage, right?
Yeah, late.
See, what happens to that lad then who stabbed him? Like, do we write that lad off?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Because there's two angles to look at it.
Sure.
Is one, the enormous, immeasurable pain and hurt that it's caused for that young person's parents and people around them, versus then. And a couple of coppers have said to me that have left the force early. They're like, they just can't do the job anymore, because they're locking young people away when they know those young people have got loads of potential, but they've got one thing wrong. And they're just killing those. They're not physically killing those young people, but in effect they're destroying them, because they're being sent to prison for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And that's the other dynamic to think about, is actually what's the impact then for that person when you lock them away for 15, 20, 25 years. And it's hard. I don't know how you go about reconciling something like that. But yeah, it's a really tricky one. But I think, going back to what I said in the very outset, the distinction between something that's good and something that's bad, that was fundamentally,
but we started by saying bad would be the equivalent of killing someone,
yeah,
right?
precisely, exactly.
So what we're saying is that he's a bad person.
Yeah.
That's probably true, but there's also probably more to it.
Exactly. This is the other side of it, So
you're going to upset somebody in that situation. Obviously, somebody lost their son. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
Do you think that they should have an influence on what happens to the young man? So, for example, if those parents kind of find it within themselves to forgive or understand perhaps why something terrible would happen, do you think they should have any influence on?
And oddly enough, there's this initiative of restorative justice, and that's found to be really, really impactful, both for the victims of the crime and then also the person that's committed it in the first place. And so you talked about the bouncer earlier, that's knocked a few people out.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, there's a guy, I think he's from Coventry actually. He was sent down for what they call a one-punch murder. So he hit this guy, went to the floor, and then killed him.
Was that in Earlsden by any chance?
I can't remember. Yeah. But he's out now, and he's at university.
Oh, okay, maybe not.
But he was on a webinar thing a couple of years ago, and he was part of this restorative justice program. And he was on there, and he showed a couple of video clips of the parents of the young guy that obviously he'd killed, and them all together as a group of three. So obviously he went to prison, he served some time, but he was in touch with the parents during his sentence, and then when he came out they were meeting face to face. And his parents were really encouraging towards him and encouraging him to go to uni and everything else, and the guy's completely turned his life around. But it's so much dependent on the individual, isn't it? I mean, if you're a parent and somebody takes your son or your daughter away, that's a big ask of them, isn't it?
Of course it is. Jeff's just written a whole book on this. His view would be that by not forgiving the person who's committed the crime, you hold yourself back too. That's it. So he was sexually abused when he was young. That's why he had all this rage in him. And he bumped, as a grown man then, I think it was 30 years later, he bumped into this guy who abused him in a coffee shop. And he went up to him and he was angry and he said, I forgive you for what you've done. The guy later killed himself, believe it or not. It's a crazy story. But Jeff was like, as soon as I forgave him, the poison left my body.
Right.
So it wasn't for his benefit. I didn't forgive this guy so that he could be let off. Jeff said, I don't have the power to do that.
Yeah.
But he said, it was for me.
Yeah.
I forgave him so I could move on with my life. So there's an element of that. It's not just for the criminal or the guy who's committed the crime. It's for everyone involved.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Sure, easier said than done.
Yes. Yeah.
I can imagine. Imagine if I was stabbed to death, my mum and dad wouldn't look kindly upon the person that did it, and they probably want them to rot in hell.
Yeah, exactly.
It's how it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
These are tough topics, man.
Yeah, it's a tricky one,
aren't they?
Yeah, really tough one to go through.
Yeah, this is why you do a good thing. Like you're not shying away from the tough work.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating stuff, mate. Like I say, it's a potential for
I know.
Such talented people, and it just goes to waste. So.
But you've got an energy, I can feel it. Like you've got that hunger to make a difference, haven't you? I can see it. Yeah, absolutely. You can whenever you meet someone, you can usually pick up off their energy pretty quickly, and you know whether they've got that hunger to do something good. Yeah, some people walk round, shoulders rounded, zombie mode, head in the face. Honestly,
looking down. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and I try not to get too critical because I've been there. But it's not healthy. It doesn't make the world a better place. I think you have to look up, open your eyes, and I think if you're feeling shit about yourself, one of the questions you can ask is, well, how can I make things better for everyone else?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't make things better for everyone else whilst you're in that zone.
No, exactly. And do you think also to some extent there's a responsibility on people generally just to grab somebody and just give them like I always call it like a psychological slap and say, look, dude, this is how I'm seeing you at the moment, mate. You need to fucking fix it.
Well, who are you talking about? Are you talking about friends? Are you talking about the random guy on the street?
I think it's more like friends and stuff. You probably wouldn't, I don't know. I'd like to see somebody go up to a random person on the street and say, look, what are you fucking doing with your life?
Well, what's more offensive, doing that or saying it to a friend?
Yeah.
So if one of your friends of 10 years turns around to you and says something like that, says, Rich, you know that bit of weight you're carrying around your belly, mate. I really think you should sort it. So you can do two things. You go, mate, thank you. You would clearly care about me. You want the best for me. Or you could tell them to go, who the fuck asked you?
I'm lucky that all of the people that I would listen to, I've got this one acid test, which is if they called me a cunt, would I listen?
You can swear on this podcast, by the way.
Would I listen? And if I would, then I spend time with them. If I wouldn't, then it's just an acquaintance and there's nothing.
Well, isn't that your job to say to your friends, this is what I want you to be as a good friend? Because I think there's dangerous territory. It's like, does that friend give you advice even if you haven't asked for it? Should they as a good friend, or should they wait until you've asked their opinion? Because it's a dangerous game. If I go around and start throwing opinions to all my friends, I don't think your lady's right for you, do you?
Oh, yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, it is. I know those individuals, I can count them on one hand. So there's 4. No, actually, no, there's 5 people like that now. Yeah. Hands down, that's it. Yeah, it's not, you wouldn't be able to do it with everyone by any means whatsoever. But yeah, there's 5 people. The only thing I know definitely, at least one of them, probably 2, wouldn't take it in return. Definitely, there's definitely one that wouldn't. Only because more than anything else, only because we don't know each other that well yet.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah,
but the others,
it comes down to trust, that drill.
Yeah, definitely.
We did it with 10 guys inside. There's a little room there, and we've been working together for 2 years. So I thought we all trust each other. We all know we want the best for each other. I thought, do you know what we're going to do today? And I learnt this off a guy called Simon Sinek. He's written Start With Why. And we all went round and we all kind of literally pointed out what we could see as weaknesses in the other person. And it was fucking hard because as the person, the recipient, you couldn't say anything. You had to just bite your lip and say thank you. You couldn't defend yourself. You couldn't say, well, hold on, mate, that's not right. You had to just listen. Yeah. So what you're doing really is getting an insight into how people see you. Yeah. Because you see yourself very differently to how people see you. Exactly. Yeah. So, we all went round, and when it was my turn, it was hard to hear. So I've got these 9 guys literally ploughing into me, but in a constructive way. And I'm making these notes. That changed my life. Yeah. At 1,000%. Because I went away and worked on the things that I thought needed working on. From that. Because sometimes there's things that I can't see that other people can see. Yeah. Just like the young lads that you're working with, there will be potential. Yeah, potential strengths and weaknesses that you see in them that they won't see in themselves. Yeah, exactly. So to have someone like yourself, work with them and say, do you know what, I've noticed you're really good at this. Yeah. Fuck, I never knew that. Yeah.
And that's the big thing, is looking more at the things that they're really capable of doing.
Sure, because they would have flagged their weaknesses over and over again.
And I think that's where the energy is.
Yes.
This, what's the guy's name? I used to work for Gallup's consultancy. Come to me in a minute. Anyway, he's this real hotshot business consultant, and he's got this brilliant thing where he says we always need to focus on maintaining and developing our strengths, because those are the areas we're naturally good at, and our brains are wired in a way to be really good in those areas. The things that we call as weaknesses or limitations, don't focus on developing those to the point that you're going to be as good at those areas as you are at your strengths, because you never will be. Because the way our brains have developed with our synapses and neurons, you're just never going to do it. But what he does say, and I love this, he says this specifically, he's like, with your weaknesses, it's always focused on damage limitation. It's always damage limitation. You're never going to be good in as good in those areas, and just always focus on your strengths. Marcus Buckingham.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an absolutely brilliant way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
So with the young people, we did this exercise with them a few weeks ago. They were all blindfolded, and they had a big piece of rope, probably about 30 metres long, 30 metres long. And they had to make the shape of a star on the floor.
Okay.
All blindfolded.
Yeah.
Right. And they did it. And to be fair, it was one of the best stars that I've ever seen.
Okay.
And even when we were trained on the exercise ages ago, we didn't even do anything as good as that. And it was brilliant. And I said to them at the end of the day, I was like, to be fair, you've done an almost impossible thing you thought was almost impossible. And you did it with us taking your sight away. And you could see there was that penny drop moment between all of them. You see the whole shape and look in their eyes was completely different. They're like, do you know what? There's some stuff that we can really do here.
Yeah.
And it really is, like I say, it's helping people to be definitely aware of the negative impact they can have on other people. But that done in very minimal moderation, I believe, in comparison to, mate, these are the things that you're fucking brilliant at.
Yeah.
And if you really do this stuff well, and more importantly, you maintain it consistently, if you do that in 2-3 years' time, you're going to be blowing people's bloody socks off, mate. That's what you want to be focusing on.
I love that.
And also understand that some people aren't going to like that shit, and that's fine. Fuck that. That's cool. There's always going to be people like that. Just go with the people that love what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And you'll smash it. You'll absolutely smash it.
No, I agree. I love that. And like you say, they would have had 18 years of doing things that they know and they're probably not very good at, or they would consider, damaging or whatever. Yeah. So to put them in that position is fantastic. But I was sitting back thinking, well, okay, this mental health crisis that we're all in now, I'm like, well, where does this end? Because it doesn't seem to be getting any better. What is the solution?
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is a complete shift in the society that we live in. So, for example, when you're telling me about those guys working together, I think that's the key thing, working together to make that star. I think it all lies in communities that we place ourselves in. That's the only thing I can think of that's going to make a permanent shift.
Yeah.
So they do this in Scandinavia. I think they now start to have shared living accommodation. So you kind of find out which people have similar values to you, and then you share your time and space with those people. Yeah. So no longer is it the isolation of I live on my own or I live with my tribe of just my wife or my wife and kids. It's now I'm part of this communal community, and what I do has an impact on 30 people in this building.
Yeah.
And it adds more value to your actions. Life isn't so isolated. And if you'd told me that 3 years ago, I said that sounds horrible. I don't want any part of that. But I think the more I dive into this game, I'm like, I think we need to be part of something.
Yeah. It's that sense of contribution. Yes. It's interesting what you said. It's like, had somebody told that to you like 3 or 4 years ago, or longer ago, when arguably that was the beginnings of your deterioration.
Sure.
Then you need something that's going to appeal to you 5 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so like I say, 10 years ago is when I had my worst. But again, I don't believe there's anyone that could have said anything at that point. I think when you're 28, you know it all.
Yeah.
You know it all.
Yeah. And then some of the time, it's not what people say, it's having that right moment in time, isn't it? It's like with me, like I said, with that handcuff moment. It's because I always think it's like with crime generally. For a lot of people, they think, well, there has to be this big silver bullet to fix it all, and there just isn't. But the example I always gives, there's a guy called Jonathan Shepherd, right? So back probably about 10 years ago now, A&E doctor. And on Friday and Saturday nights, he started to notice there are a lot more patients coming into A&E suffering blunt force trauma, like been smacked over the head with planks of wood and all of that stuff. So he got together with a couple of his doctor buddies and got the 999 call sheet, and they went to the locations where these people have been picked up. Do you know what they found in each of those locations?
Go on.
Building site.
Okay.
And that was before the days that building sites were required to be fully enclosed.
Sure. Yeah.
So they went around, did loads of research and everything else, lobbied government, and now when you get planning permission, you have to fully enclose the building sites. And of course, pretty much overnight, the number of people presenting blunt force trauma in A&E Friday and Saturday nights fell off a cliff face. So that has reduced the level of crime in terms of violent crime and violence against each other. So if you look at the crime statistics since 1995 to 2016, crime has reduced by, I think, about 75% or something.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge, massive, huge reduction.
I wonder how much of it is alcohol related now.
There's all sorts of stuff. Then the stuff around substance abuse, but then on the other side you've got cybercrime is still on the increase and everything else. So it's not complete across all types of criminality that it's dropped. The point is, though, that actually the work of Jonathan Shepherd and some of his buddies contributed towards it. So crime is a big, huge thing, like mental health. It's a huge, big, complex social issue. And it's about thinking about all of the different things that we can pull together, that when you amass it all together is going to make a significant contribution to driving it down. Because I think your point around what happens in Scandinavia is brilliant. And there's going to be a whole load of people that's going to really appeal to. There's going to be a whole load of other people, like you were saying, like 10 years ago, somebody said that to you, like, what are you on about? Check me out. I'm fucking Jack the Lad and everything else. So there needs to be something different for that type of person. And it's a whole combination of different things when you pull it all together that has that impact. If that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Yeah. I still think that some of it might come down to, do you want to get on board and play this game? Like, do you want to improve your life? Do you want to improve the life of others? I'm not sure whether you can ever help anybody that doesn't want to be helped. Unless, like you say, that societal shift is so so great that you have to behave in a certain way to fit in with the society. So you have to behave like a decent person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you're around people that are decent.
Yeah.
So but like you say, long, slow progress, right? But there are things we can do for sure.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff.
Yeah. I think sometimes the problem feels so great that it feels like it's not worth starting. But this is why I wanted to speak to you, because I'm like, well, what you're doing is going to make a difference. Yeah. Well, even if you affect one kid, right, and he meets somebody, and their life is then affected from it. He has kids. Yeah. Their life is that. Yeah. It's for. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You affect one person, and you've changed an entire family's life, and then what those kids go on to do, it's never ending. So it's really important what you do. This brain tumor that you had.
Yeah.
I'll just throw this into the
conversation. Straight to something completely different.
I know. Do you know what? Because I'm looking. We've chatted for an hour and 20, right. and I know you've.
I've got my car thing to move as well.
I know that. I know it's on your mind. Yeah, are you all right for time?
Yeah, it should be all right. Yeah,
sure. Well, you're a bit of a rebel, aren't you? You said you like to break the rules.
What time did I park there? Like 2:45.
Yeah, you got 20 minutes.
You got 2 hours in total, isn't it?
Yeah, you're fine, right?
Yeah, it'll be right.
Let's talk about this, because this was a life-threatening brain tumor. What I really want to know is, if we just get straight to it, is like, how did it affect the way that you lived your life, like having nearly kind of lost it to a brain tumor?
Oh, how did it? What followed my life?
Yeah, no. Well, how has it affected the way that you approach life now?
Oh, so one of the things is I always struggle with time.
Okay.
Seriously, I promise I do. I was like the first couple of weeks when I was discharged from hospital, I had to go to the OT, the occupational therapist, and I was a week early.
No.
Yeah, I went into reception. I was like, "Oh, hi, Richard. I'm here for my appointment." And she said, "Oh, yeah, that's fine. Go and take a seat." And then one of the clinicians came over and said, "Look, what day did you think your appointment was?" I was told him the date. I was like, "And what day do you think it is?" And I told him. And I was bang on exactly 1 week early.
Right, okay.
And even now, almost 20 years later. Yeah, 20 years later. Yeah, I was 21 when I had it out. Or most of it operated on. Still problems with time. But I'm always early. You're always early.
Yeah, I was impressed actually. Yeah. I like people to be early rather than late.
Yeah, exactly. So, but on the flip side, I think if I was more consistently late, because it's a great excuse. So, like when I forget stuff like my wife's birthday, I'm like, yeah, but you know that I have problems with numbers.
Yeah,
and brilliant. It's with tumour. And then she's like, yeah, but you asked me to marry you, and I'm like, yeah, but only after surgery.
Yeah. Can you still get away with using that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, it's valid. To be fair, it's a pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. It's a hard one to kind of like counter. Really.
How's it affected your outlook on life? Rather, is probably what I meant.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd because it did almost literally kill me. Yeah. There was a point where I was gonna die. We were saying earlier around, how do you measure success? Is it the amount of money you've got in your account, or the contribution you've made in the people around you? When I almost died, when you get a report or a book and you've got like an executive summary. Yeah. My life flashed before my eyes as an executive summary.
Did that really happen then?
Oh yeah, 110%. And I can remember I was laid in bed. And I was reading it, and I just do not like anything that's on there. Do not like anything that's on there at all. And I'm like, well, if I do get through this, which I'm fucking going to do, I'm going to change all of that. And that's what I've been doing.
Was this like a thought, a flash, like that contained all that information, or were you actually sit back and processing it?
No, it was literally like a white page of an executive summary is there right in front of me.
And you were just seeing this in your mind, yeah?
Yeah, in my mind, and I was just reading.
And you were reading it?
Yeah, the whole thing.
And who was writing it out? Do you not know?
No, it was just there.
It was just there.
It just appeared, and that was a summary of my life so far. Because I was still a royal twat.
Do you think that's what will happen at the very end too? When it's final, do you think there'll be a summary of like, this is what you did with your life?
Yeah, for me, definitely.
Well, you've experienced it, right?
Definitely for me. I mean, another guy that I know, he's not as fortunate as me. He's definitely going to die in the next couple of months, and he almost died already. And for him, it was different. He was just at peace, and he was like, yeah, I can see I'm going, and it was literally like this light corridory thing for him.
I like his version better than yours.
So, yeah. Do you know what I mean? But to be fair, I mean, he's like I say, he's at complete peace of everything that he's done. It's great when I get to speak to him, because all he wants to do now is stay alive for long enough to meet his first granddaughter or grandson. Okay. That's the final thing that he wants to do. And he's happy. He says to me, he's like, right, I know I'm going to die. And it's not really that shit, because what is he? He's like 58, 59. He says specifically, he's like, Rich, I've had a really, really good life. It'd be a lot worse if I was young in my 20s or something like that. But I've lived most of my life. So he's just completely at peace, whereas I'm not. I'm a million miles from being at peace.
For sure. If I was, if I was told that I had a year or two left, I'd be devastated because I haven't lived the life that I want to live. Simple. So it's like, I know it's a bit of a race for time. I don't think I'll ever live the life I've wanted to live. I really find it hard when people say they don't have regrets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How come?
Well, do you not look back and think, I wish I hadn't have done X, Y, and Z?
Ah, fuck that. I think there's only one thing I absolutely 110% regret doing. One thing. And that's punching out the front window of my mum's house.
See, even that, I could get over that.
No, fuck that. That's the only thing. Everything else, it's only a regret if I've not learned from it and doing something differently off the back of it.
Yeah, for me, it's more the way that I've treated people. That's my biggest regret.
Yeah.
It's not any mistakes I've made. It's not any like bad moves I've made. Like nothing whatsoever to do with a business strategy or my business. None of that. It's treating people that deserve to be treated better. Yeah, it's showing the ugliest sides of myself. That's what being not being probably a loving human being. Yeah, being more angry than loving. Yeah,
exactly. I get that.
That's the thing that I do regret. Yeah. And still having difficulties. The biggest regret is that it's you can't click your fingers and change it. Yeah. Because like I said, I'd love to be that guy. Yeah. But it's work. It's work, and I'm just very open and honest about it.
Then do you think you'd be doing the stuff you're doing now?
No, for sure.
Impact? Yeah. So that's the other side of it, then, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, the messages that come in through the channel are like the conversation we've had today about both of us having said we've had to work hard not to be a dick. Like people will listen to that, and I can sometimes feel the relief when people hear that. Like, oh, fucking hell, thank God, it's not just me that has to work hard to not be a dick too. Exactly, So I like to mix the podcast up with a good kind of like share of vulnerabilities, truths, and then spin some positive stuff on it. Like you say, like with these young lads, like that's the kind of thing that would get me out of bed and make me work hard to know that I could impact someone else like that. That's the kind of shit we should be working towards. Yeah, so if it's just about me, it's boring. Yeah. So it has to be about the lads that I coach. Yeah. And and it works. Just being a bit of encouragement for them, and I get mentored, and someone gives me. Do you know what I mean? We pass it on.
That's a big thing with it. Yeah, we learn so much from doing it. Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a traditional. I can speak to you all day, by the way, Mum. But again, I don't want you getting your car.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm going to move it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's all right. I can. Well, yeah. Let me ask you. Let me fire this question because this is traditional. And by the way, you can smoke your.
No, I haven't thought about it once actually.
Have you not?
I think it's a really good.
When you said you like breaking the rules, I thought you were going to put your feet up on the desk, kick back with a smoke. Oh no, that would have been cool. Yeah, yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah. What's the one area now that you need to go away and work on in order to become a better man?
At the moment, it's the persuasion thing. Definitely, 110%.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, persuasion in terms of understanding more around where other people are at, what their agendas are, and how. Through understanding that, I can reframe some of the stuff that I want to achieve that's going to help them get what they want to get alongside helping me to get what I want to get in the delivery of real leaders. It's definitely the persuasion thing, 110%.
Okay, so understanding what the person in front of you wants and then aligning that it meets your needs and desires too.
Yeah, precisely.
So it's got to meet your values and theirs.
Yeah, so it's that whole, not necessarily the win-win thing, but actually, we're both going to get something that we really want out of this.
Yeah. How do you get better at the act of that?
So reading a lot.
Okay. What are you reading?
So at the moment, I've just finished Never Split the Difference by that ex-American FBI negotiator. Such a good book. Okay. And I'm reading with my two girls actually, The Squiggly Career Again. Okay. Because a lot of that is around how you identify your values. And what it does for me is it just consciously reminds me to keep focusing on those areas, because I get really into stuff and then I forget that actually I'm still learning to be more attentive to understanding other people.
Do you know what your values are now? Are you clear on those?
Oh yeah, not all of them by any means.
Yeah. What are the main ones for you?
So my biggest one is definitely collaboration. Okay. Yeah. I just love spending time around and working with the right people. Yeah. 110%. And then also a big thing around pushing boundaries. Yeah. Has to be in there. I mean, I've done leadership programs where I put a group of execs in a room full of live snakes. Yeah. And everyone was like, Rich, what the fuck are you doing? And it smashed it. And yeah, it has to be. It has to be knowing or feeling very much like you're on the edge with big stuff.
Yeah, I love that when we get a group of guys together and people say to me, like, what does value mean for you? And I'm like, if I can make these guys think hard and challenge their thinking, I'm happy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If I can make them think differently and almost go away like did he just say that? Did he just question this? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Like, go where very few people are willing to go.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd be dangerous if we did something together, mate.
Be alright, wouldn't it? We'd have to have a chat afterwards.
Sure,
yeah,
man.
definitely. So we can do some stuff.
Yeah, well, listen, we've done 90 minutes. I mean,
it's flying by.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just cool to chat. And I love what you're doing, and the fact that you're spending your time and effort helping these guys. I think it says a lot about you as an individual. So as soon as Rachel told me about you, I was like, I need to speak to you, man. I think it's good.
She's an incredible woman, herself, really.
She blew me away, man. The amount of gratitude that woman has. I felt embarrassed in like speaking to her because she's on a different level to me in terms of gratitude. She taught me so much.
Such a high degree of humility with her. It's massive.
Huge. I don't think I've ever experienced that, to be honest. Because gratitude is one thing that, I have to work so fucking hard on it. I have to write it down every day. I even had the word tattooed on me. Right. It's played that much of it's made my life that much better, learning how to be grateful for stuff. So it's hard though. Again, it's one of those things. I'd love to be more grateful for stuff, but I have to train it. Yeah. Because you can always focus on the shit, the stuff you haven't got, and the stuff you're not very good at, and all the bad stuff in the world. So you have to kind of work on that too. But again, it's a skill. You can train it.
Yeah, exactly. It's absolutely that.
Yeah, I have to journal every day, and I have to write 3 things that I'm grateful for each day. Yeah.
And it's a discipline side of it, isn't it, where you stick at it.
That's one thing I'm good at, you know. Yeah, I like discipline.
Oh, really?
Oh, I like it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like it. Again, it's that thing that I know that most people couldn't do.
Yeah.
So like, I never miss gym. So like my discipline is good in that sense. So there's one thing I know I'm good at.
Yeah, smash that then.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, again, that can cross over too far as well. Like your life can become a bit rigid. So I'm one of those guys. I get up at 5:30 every day. Yeah, I never hit snooze. Like that ain't happening in my world. I get up, I read, I write, I go gym. I do. It's militant. Yeah. And I think that's made my life better. But I now need to learn maybe how to be more flexible within that rigid routine. And probably enjoy myself a little bit more. Take things less serious, because things are very serious in my life. Yeah. But I like serious. I don't like to waste my time on small talk either. Yeah. It's like,
So what's driving your desire to be less serious and be more flexible?
Probably because my awareness that like this doesn't go on forever, and we're here for a good time as well as to work hard. So it's that curiosity drives the podcast. So just curious to know who you are today and know what you do. Yeah. So I love learning from people. It's been one of my values. Like if I can, if I could be around people that can educate me and other people, I just want to be part of it. So I love that. But the fun side is, there's a cheeky chap inside of me as well. Yeah. Before I had this wobble, this breakdown, part of the hard thing was letting go of the Alex who used to love to go out and get drunk, because I was the life and soul of the party. When I went out, everyone came out because they knew they were going to have a good time. Yeah. I'm the guy at the bar bringing over 20 Jaeger bombs, and I like that guy, but he used to get into trouble. Do you know what I mean? But he was he was so good to be around. Yeah. So I've had to learn how to like maybe transition that fun side of me without the influence of alcohol and discover, well, where's the fun Alex live when he's not going out and getting pissed and getting into mischief? Because that guy's still about, he likes to have a bit of a good time. Yeah. I mean, he's a lot tamer now, but I'm never happier than when I'm out like with my dad and family and friends having 4 or 5 pints and a cigarette. Yeah, all the things that I probably shouldn't do, I just drawn to it. I like it, but it's under control now. Yeah, you know what I mean, I let that guy out of his cage occasionally, and then I put him away before it's too late. Yeah. So I've trained that well. Yeah, but I don't want to be perfect. I don't want to be the guy who can't have a beer or a cigarette. I like that part. Yeah, it's too juicy to let go yet. Yeah, and
also to be fair, if that's part of what you enjoy doing,
well, that's
that's good stuff to do, isn't it?
Well, I don't know.
Like I say, it's the moderation aspect of it, isn't it?
It is, and let's face it, it's hard to moderate after you've had 4 or 5 pints. This whole logical conversation that we're having can sometimes go out the window. So that in itself is a different discipline. Yeah. But I allow myself now these things in life occasionally that I probably enjoy more because I don't do them frequently. Yeah. And I put myself around safe people as well. So I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't go out drinking with people who I thought were a bad crowd or were doing drugs, things like that. You kind of get this. Is what I mean. It's you make better decisions as you get older. Will I go and have 6 pints with my dad? Yeah, because it's a safe environment. Yeah. We're going to get a cab home and that'll be that. So I kind of know when to let the guy out of the cage a little bit and let go. Yeah. So it's a learning curve. But I learn from fucking up like most men.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, isn't it, mate? It's only a fuck up if you don't learn anything from it. Isn't it?
Sure.
In most instances, unless there's something seriously fucked up that you end up getting involved in.
Yeah, sure. However, most mistakes do repeat themselves until you learn them properly. Like most men won't just make a mistake once. They'll make it again and again and again. I mean, how many times do you have to bite your missus' head off before you realise it's like you do it over and over again until you go too far. It's that kind of stuff. It's a bit like the young lads we'd spoke about. I bet that the incident of the lad stabbing the other lad weren't his first physical altercation. It probably built up to that.
Oh yeah, there's probably a sequence of events and stuff, wasn't there? Yeah,
and I think that's what I mean about the change is driven when you finally make the mistake again and the consequences are dire. Yeah. So that's how people get overweight as well. It's, a series of small little kind of errors along the way, or small portion control out of sync, and all of a sudden they're 5 stone overweight. Yeah, but you didn't just wake up 5 stone overweight.
And then you bend over to pick something up off the floor that you've dropped, and then your trousers are split.
Yes. Exactly. And then you ask them, why did you change? And they say, well, one day I bent over, my trousers split. Exactly. It's like, well, but there was like 1,050 days before that you could have course corrected things. So it's just the way. Mate, thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, it's been good, mate.
Really mate, good. Are you going to come back and movie car, or should we take some pictures now?
Let's take a couple of pictures now, because I think I've got about 10 minutes on that.
Come on, I love it. Mate, thanks for your time.
Cool, man. No worries. Cool.